Nature has built almost everything you can imagine. A frog that freezes solid through an entire winter, then thaws out alive in spring. An eel that generates enough electricity to stun a horse. A lizard that defends itself by shooting blood out of its own eyes. A jellyfish that can, under the right conditions, reverse its own aging and start over. Evolution has produced nearly every nightmare and every miracle you could dream up, given 4 billion years to work with. Except one. There is a single creature that humans invented, in almost the same form, on continents that never once had contact with each other, and nature never built it. Not once. We call it a dragon. And the strange part was never that we imagined a monster. It's that people who never met each other imagined the exact same one. Picture a dragon and you probably see the Western version, a giant scaled reptile with wings, breathing fire. Now look at what other cultures built entirely on their own. In ancient China, a long serpent-bodied dragon that commands rivers and rain. In Mesoamerica, a feathered serpent god worshipped across Aztec and Maya civilization. In Aboriginal Australian tradition, a rainbow serpent said to have carved the rivers and mountains into existence. In medieval Europe, a fire-breathing lizard guarding treasure in a cave. 4 peoples. 0 contact. And every one of them reached for the same basic parts, the bulk and scales of a giant reptile, the coiling body of a snake, the presence of an apex predator. Evolution had the whole planet and all the time in the world, and it never once assembled those pieces into a single animal. So why did humans keep assembling it, independently, again and again? Let's take it apart, piece by piece, starting with the part that sounds the most impossible. Fire is the single most iconic dragon trait. And weirdly, it's the one nature came closest to actually building. Meet the bombardier beetle. When something threatens it, this insect mixes 2 chemicals stored inside its own abdomen, hydrogen peroxide and a compound called hydroquinone. The reaction is violent enough to heat the mixture close to the boiling point of water, and blast it out in a targeted, aimed spray, fired in rapid pulses like a tiny machine gun. It is the closest thing to a flamethrower anywhere in the animal kingdom. And it is still not fire. It's boiling liquid, not flame. In the entire recorded history of life on this planet, not one species has ever evolved the ability to ignite something. So the single most famous dragon feature of all is the one trait evolution has never, not even once, produced. Now the size, and the armor. We actually have an animal named directly after the myth, the Komodo dragon. The largest living lizard on Earth, roughly 10 feet long, with a bite that can bring down prey many times its own size. But the Komodo is the smaller, surviving cousin of something far bigger. Until roughly 50,000 years ago, Australia was home to Megalania, a monitor lizard that may have stretched close to 20 feet long. A venomous reptile longer than a car, sharing the same landscape as some of the first humans to ever reach that continent. Not a dragon, but a real, living reptile that could have easily passed for one, around a fire, in a story told generations later. Then there's flight. There's a lizard alive today called Draco, native to the forests of Southeast Asia, that genuinely glides. It didn't grow new limbs to manage it. It stretched its own ribs outward and pulled a fold of skin across them like a fan. It leaps from a trunk, snaps those ribs open, and can glide across 2/3 of a football field to the next tree. Now go back 68 million years, to the final days of the Dinosaurs and the sky belong to something far stranger. Quetzalcoatlus. A flying reptile with a wingspan over 35 feet, standing as tall as a giraffe when folded up on the ground. Weighing somewhere around 500 pounds. It launched itself into the air the way a pole vaulter launches over a bar, using its own folded wings as springs, and then it actually flew. A giraffe-sized reptile, pole vaulting itself into the sky. So every single ingredient of a dragon has existed somewhere, at some point in the fossil record. Nature simply never let one creature carry all of them at once. And that's not bad luck. There are 3 hard rules working against it. Rule 1 is written into the numbers of your own skeleton. A classic dragon has 4 legs and 2 wings, 6 limbs total. But every animal with a backbone, from a whale to a hawk to a Tyrannosaurus, descends from the same 4-limbed fish that first crawled out of the water. 4 limbs is the entire starting budget for every vertebrate that has ever lived, and nobody has ever been issued a spare pair. When a bird, a bat, or a pterosaur flies, it isn't growing new arms, it's converting the arms it already had into wings. You can keep your front legs, or you can turn them into wings. Evolution has never handed out both at once. Rule 2 is pure scale. Double an animal's length, and its weight jumps roughly 8-fold, but its bone and muscle strength only grows about 4-fold. Push a body large enough, and its own weight begins crushing it from the inside. Quetzalcoatlus was already scraping the absolute ceiling of how large a flying animal can physically be. A dragon the size of a barn, with wings, isn't a bigger Quetzalcoatlus, it's a skeleton that never leaves the ground. Rule 3 loops right back to the fire. Flight is already the single most metabolically expensive act in the animal kingdom. Pushing a flying body to its absolute limit just to stay airborne. There is no leftover energy budget left over to also run an internal furnace. Stack all 3 rules on top of each other, and you get a creature forbidden by biology and physics at the same time, from every angle at once. So if a dragon is that thoroughly impossible, why did so many unconnected cultures draw the exact same monster? There are 2 competing explanations. The first is about bones in the ground. Long before anyone understood what a dinosaur even was, people kept digging up enormous fossilized skeletons. Historian Adrian Mayer has traced several of these discoveries directly into myth. Ancient miners crossing Central Asia repeatedly unearthed the beaked skeleton of a creature we now call Protoceratops, and with no concept of extinction, they rebuilt those bones, in their imagination, into a guardian beast, the griffin. In China, fossils dug from the earth were ground into traditional medicine under a name that translates, quite literally, to dragon bones. All over the planet, humans were finding genuinely enormous, genuinely alien skeletons in the dirt, and inventing monsters to explain them. The second explanation is stranger, and it isn't about the ground at all. It's about what's already wired into your brain. Vervet monkeys have 3 distinct alarm calls, one for a big cat stalking on the ground, one for an eagle diving from above, and one for a snake hidden in the grass. Those 3 predators hunted primates, including our own ancestors, for millions of years. Anthropologist David E. Jones proposed that the fear of all 3 got burned so deep into the primate brain that, over evolutionary time, they fused into a single composite threat. The fangs and claws of the great cat, the wings and diving strike of the eagle, wrapped around the long coiling body of the snake. Put those three ancient fears together, and you've built a dragon. Out of nothing but instinct. It's a contested theory. You can't excavate an instinct the way you excavate a fossil, but it explains something the bones alone never could. Not just why we invented a monster, but why we kept inventing this exact same one, with the same parts, on continents that never once made contact. The real reason nature never built a dragon is that a dragon was never actually an animal to begin with. Every single piece of it is real. The fire is a beetle's boiling spray. The size belonged to a monitor lizard patrolling ancient Australia. The wings belonged to a real pterosaur that pole vaulted itself into the sky. And the fear underneath all of it is a memory older than our entire species. The assembly, though, that never happened out in the wild. It happened in here. The dragon is the shape your ancestors' oldest nightmares took. Once every predator that had ever hunted them got stitched together into a single body, and handed down, story after story. Around a fire. Nature never made a dragon. We did, out of every single thing that used to hunt us in the dark. If this changed the way you look at old myths, hit like and subscribe. MindShiftPod digs up the psychology and the science hiding behind the stories every culture somehow ends up telling. See you in the next one.